Okay. We should be live. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehakol nihya bidvaro. What? Well, of course we're here. Why would we be here? Well, they're giving a mishloach manot. Okay. Who's ready for action? Do you guys see me on Facebook? You see me, Randy? You see me in person. I see you face to face. I'm not on, huh? Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm told we're alive. In case you didn't know. Let's see if anyone can see us.
It's live
Per Korean is live. Okay. I'm live. What?
Yes, you're live.
This is on my actually on Facebook or on my YouTube page?
I believe she's on Facebook.
Okay. Okay, so if Corinne can see us, Corinne say hi. Let me just see what's going on here.
I did.
Well?
Yep, she confirmed Facebook.
Okay, we're live. Okay, so my friends, if we're live, let's do it. So tonight, I see a Shavua Tov in Michigan. Did you all have a beautiful Purim? I know everyone here did because you guys were all with me celebrating on Purim. And I had a good Purim. Randy says it was Mitsuyan. I agree with you. It was Mitsuyan. My voice makes it clear it was Mitsuyan. On camera, they can't see how sore my legs are right now from all the dancing. You can't see that. I'm still smiling. It was the best. I'm not complaining. I'm just sore. I'm not complaining. What? Today? Of course I worked today. I went all day giving out mishloach manot. Till today. In my partial costume. Till 5 o'clock or something. And then I came back home for class. Okay, anyway, let's go. You ready? So if Shavua Tov from Michigan, we have a good afternoon from Virginia, from Henry. And if you're watching anywhere in the world, feel free to say hi so we can see who's watching. Okay? Ready? So I'll start with tonight's learning, as always, is in the memory of Yitzchak Tzvi ben Yosef. As the Shema should have an elevation. Start with a joke. I'm for sure I've said it before because it's a good one, but it fits to the theme, to the character, the biblical character we're going to talk about tonight. Our character that I'll bet none of you recognize. Maybe Vivi knows by name. Recognize the name, but you're not going to, maybe you'll know who this person is and what role they play in the story of the Jewish people, okay? But first the joke, because the joke is good, especially on Purim, or after, it's still Shush on Purim. So the joke is of the student in school and college, and the teacher gave them 2 hours to do this very, very complicated test, the whole essay, and 10 minutes are up, and the teacher says, okay, you have 10 minutes, and then I'm taking the test. 2 minutes. Whoever's not done, you have 2 minutes to hand it in. Bell rings, everyone comes and hands in their test, except for one kid who's still in the back, and he's writing. And the teacher says, okay, it's done. I'm not taking any more tests. He's grading the tests, and the student is there. Half hour after the test finishes, the student comes to hand in his test, and the teacher says, I'm sorry. I already said that I'm not taking the bell rings. You missed the chance to get on time. You get an automatic 0. I'm not accepting the test. Tough, huh? The student looks at the teacher and says, do you even know who I am? Teacher says, no. Says, you don't know my family? You don't know my father? You don't know who my father is? Teacher says, no, I don't know who your father is. I don't care who your father is. I'm not taking your test because it's after the time. Student says, you don't know my family? Perfect. He picks up half the pile of the tests, puts his paper right in the middle of the pile, puts down the paper, and walks out. So it's a good one, huh? Okay, so tonight we're going to talk about someone who actually plays a pivotal role in the story of Purim, because we're still in the Purim mode. But his name, although we mention his name, most people don't even know who he is. The person I'm referring to is a man called Charvonah. You heard of Charvonah? Not Charona. Charona is not Corona, not Charona. Charvonah. And not Carvana. That's the buy you used cars. I see their ads all the time. Not Carvana and not Corona. First of all, it's a Jewish name. I say Charvonah. Heard of Charvonah? Sounds familiar. But you don't know why it sounds familiar. Okay, so no one knows. Perfect. Even Vivi doesn't know. Okay, so Vivi, you have to stay through the whole class. So tonight I'm going to tell you about Charvonah. Hello from Montreal, Quebec. If you've heard of Charvonah, feel free to send us a comment and let us know if you've heard of Charvonah. But Charvonah is a pretty important person in the Haggadah, in the Megillah. How do I know he's important? How do I know that Charvonah is worth a whole class if none of you even heard of him before? Who says he's worth a class, right? So let's start not by reading the Megillah, but rather let's start by reading. There's a little prayer we say after we finish reading the Megillah. So if there's a minyan, after we finish the entire reading of the entire Megillah, we speak about Mordechai, whatever, and then we read a blessing, and then there's a song that we sing. Okay? People watching it from Malaysia. I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to show you. I don't know how to zoom in on this platform I'm using, but if you can read it, here's the words. You know, you want to give me a paper, if you don't mind, Randy? You want to pass me a paper?
Oh, yes.
You saw the song.
I saw it.
You saw it in the Megillah. I didn't make it up.
Yes, this is the guy who made the suggestion.
Correct. So let's read what we read after we finish reading the whole Megillah. It's a song called Shoshanas Yaakov. Shoshanas Yaakov means the rose of Jacob. Shoshana, many different tunes. I'm not going to sing. I'm a horse like a horse. I won't sing tonight. But anyway, the end of the song goes like this. Arur Haman, cursed is Haman, who sought to destroy me, and blessed is Mordechai the Jew. Arura Zeresh, Eshes Mafchidi, cursed be Zeresh of Haman, who terrified me. Blessed be Esther, who interceded on my behalf to save the Jewish people. Cursed be all the wicked, blessed be all the righteous. Gam Charvonah Zachor Latov. And also may Charvonah also be remembered favorably. Those are the words we read after the Megillah. Gam Charvonah Zachor Latov, may also Charvonah be remembered favorably. So if we read that in the Megillah or right afterwards, it might be curious to find out who indeed is this Charvonah. I mean, we read, it's based on a statement from I think Rav Chisda in the Gemara, from a Medrash, that when we mentioned that when they would read the Megillah and they would come to the name of Haman, I think it was Rav Chisda, I'm going from memory, he said, cursed is the name of the wicked. When they came to Mordechai's name, he said, blessed is the name of the righteous. And when they came to Charvonah, said, and also Charvonah should be remembered for good. So that's why we say, V'gam Charvonah Zachor Latov, he's too remembered for the good. But who is this Charvonah that's being remembered for the good? So, if we don't know, we'll look in the Megillah. Let's see, what does he do, right? What's the story? So, I'm going to tell you the story. Now, before I start the story, let me just give you the backdrop, okay? Let me paint the stage a little bit. Esther knows about the decree that the Jewish people are going to be killed. She tells all the Jews, fast for 3 days, and after 3 days, I'm going to go to the king, even though he never invited me, I'm going to go to speak to the king. She comes to the king, she says to the king, if it pleases my master, please come with Haman to a party I will make in your honor. Okay? They come to the party, and that night he says, what, my queen, can I do for you? Up to half the kingdom, and it shall be yours. And she answers, if it pleases the king, come tomorrow, and make another feast again tomorrow. That night, after the first feast, what happened? Haman was leaving the party, and he sees Mordechai. And Mordechai is not bowing down. This gets him mishugeh. Makes him crazy. When he comes home, he says to his wife, to Zeresh, and to all of his beloved people, says the Megillah, all of his advisors who loved him, this Mordechai Jew, I'm the most important person in the kingdom. How dare you not bow down to me? So Zeresh, his wife, and his ministers say to him, build a gallows 50 cubits high and hang Mordechai, that Jew. Don't wait till next year when all the Jews will be killed, because there's already a date for execution. It was already set. Mordechai should die tomorrow. Go build a gallows. Haman likes the idea so much, he can't go to sleep. You know, when you're really excited, you can't go to sleep. So instead of going to sleep in the morning, hiring a construction crew to build a gallows, 50 cubits. Just remember, a cubit is about 1.5 to 21 inches. Something 75 to like 90 feet tall. Okay, 75-foot tall gallows, that's a pretty tall gallows. That's like 7 stories, or 6 stories, whatever. It's a pretty tall gallows. That night, he's banging away, he builds the gallows. And then when he finishes building the gallows, he still can't go to sleep. What does he do? He decides to go back to the king that night, in the middle of the night, to go and ask the king for permission to hang Mordechai on the gallows. Now, his mazel, his luck, when he came back, what happened? The king also couldn't sleep, right? This is what I'm telling you now is important. Remember all these details. You're going to need to know them later. He comes back, and the king couldn't sleep, so the king asked his servant to read in the book of Chronicles. We talked about this last week, right, with Bigsan and Seresh. And the king's reading about Bigsan and Seresh and how Mordechai uncovered the plot, and Mordechai saved his life. What was done to honor Mordechai? Nothing was done. At that moment, Haman walks into his trap. The king asks Haman, what should I do to the man that I want to honor? And Haman, in his egotistical mindset, thinks, of course, who else could the king want to honor besides for me? He says, the king you want, the man you want to honor, give him the throne, give him the crown, give him the royal clothing, give him the royal horse, have a whole parade in his honor, and have all of your advisors, thinking it'll be Mordechai, lead him in front of the streets, screaming out loud for everyone to hear, such shall be done to the man whom the king wishes to honor. Again, remember these details. You're going to need to know them later. I'm not just dramatizing for no reason. These are important details. I promise. So Haman said, Achashverosh says to Haman, good idea, Mr. Haman. Exactly what you said to do, go do to Mordechai the Jew. Now, obviously, that's not the moment to ask the king for permission to kill Mordechai. That's not going to be the right time to do that. So scratch that idea. Instead, he goes, gets Haman dressed. Mordechai was fasting. He hadn't had a haircut. He hadn't been bathed. Haman himself had to go bathe him and to go shave him and to go get him ready. I think I mentioned this last week. He climbed to the top of Haman, whole parade. That night, they come to the second feast. Haman comes. He comes home from the whole parade, and the moment he came home, before he had a chance to change, already the guards are waiting to take him to the feast of Achashverosh and Esther. He comes to the second party, and again the king turns to his beautiful wife and says, Esther, my beautiful wife, up to half the kingdom is yours. And Esther says, my people are threatened with annihilation. There is an evil man that wants to kill me and my people. And Achashverosh shocked, says, what? Who could me? Who's Who could be? Who could do the thing? Esther says, Ish Sarva Oyev, a very wicked, terrible man. Haman, this wicked Haman. Says Haman gets all flustered and all to flag, all bent out of shape. And what happens? Here we come to the moment that I'm building up to. At that moment, the Megillah tells us in chapter 7, the king couldn't handle it. Haman wants to kill his wife. He needs to collect himself. Says the Megillah, how does the king react? He walks out to the garden. The king arose from his fury, from the wine feast to the orchard garden. And while he goes out, Haman sees this is not good. The king is angry. He stands up to beg for his life of Queen Esther, for he saw the evil was determined against him by the king. So, king's out of the garden, and where is Haman? Begging at the feet of Esther. Verse number 8. Then the king returned from the orchard garden to the house of the wine feast. At that moment, Haman fell upon Esther. The commentary said that an angel actually came and pushed Haman. So the moment that he came in, he got scared, whatever happened, he fell on top of Esther. And the king walks in. He sees Haman on the top of Esther. And what does he say? Well, you even forced the queen with me in the house. He's thinking she's trying to rape her, trying to violate her, like Hamas, when they murdered and raped our innocent girls on Simchas Torah. But the UN is finally being forced to admit that perhaps there's good reason to suspect something may have happened, some crap like that, whatever. Let's not get distracted. So he gets very angry. Are you trying to rape my wife here in the palace, with me in the palace? The word came out of the king's mouth, and they covered Haman's face. They haven't killed Haman yet, they just covered his face, which is a sign of disgrace. Then here comes the verse number 9. Then said Charvonah, one of the chamberlains before the king, Gam hinei ha'et asher asa Haman leMordechai asher dibitei v'lamelech. Says to the king, behold, also, the word also is important. Behold, the gallows that Haman made for Mordechai, who spoke well for the king, they're standing in the house. And the king said, hang him on it. Okay. So right away they take him out and they hang Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordechai. And that is the story of why Charvonah is Zachar Latov, because it was at that moment, woke up, said, oh, Haman's not just trying to kill Esther. He also made a gallows for Mordechai hanging in his house, 50 cubits high. And that's the moment when the king says, kill Haman. And so because Haman is killed, we give thanks and we remember Charvonah for good. Okay, my friends, I ask you a simple question. What's so amazing? What did Charvonah do already? Let me ask you the question differently. Well, let me make sure this is clear. The Charvonah didn't like whatever gallows. Why did the king kill him? Because he made gallows? Or is the king killing Haman because he's trying to kill the Jews and he's trying to kill his wife? Which one? Could be. It's a good question. If you think about that question and you read the Megillah that we just read together, you're going to discover Achashverosh doesn't react right away. You notice that, right? First, heart, your husband says, there's an evil man trying to kill me. Haman, this wicked. How does Achashverosh respond? Let me go think for a few minutes. Let me think about this. He comes back in. You're trying to violate my wife with me in the palace. They don't kill him. They don't kill him. Cover his face. Oh man, Charvonah speaks up. Finally, now Haman is killed. So what's so amazing about what Haman says, about what Charvonah says, sorry, and why, let me answer this, the classic explanation, just to explain the story. And I'm going to give you such a beautiful, beautiful explanation that I learned today. A whole beautiful perspective on the story, okay? Really a beautiful perspective. Stay with me, my friends. I have something beautiful to share. First, let me just give you we say a balabatish understanding. Just a good answer, just to explain it. Let's get into the psychology of Achashverosh. How does Achashverosh make decisions? No. Is Achashverosh a person who thinks? Or he's impetuous and impulsive and on the spur of the moment, he's a very impulsive. We already saw once before how impulsive Achashverosh is. Correct. He's at a party, if you remember, and Achashverosh got angry. Vashti was called to show up at the party. She didn't show up, and comes along Muhammad, who's actually nothing for Haman, says, oh, that's an embarrassing thing. The king says something that his wife doesn't listen. We better kill her so people don't think that you're allowed to not listen to your wife. Here's Steve. If you don't listen to your wife, it'll be, it's actually the other way around. It's Michelle, I'm sorry. If you don't listen to your husband, sorry, don't listen to your husband. I really think Steve's a good idea. Picking you 2 nights in a row. But you don't listen to your husband, you deserve to get killed for that. So what does Achashverosh do? On the spot, he kills her. Right? He kills her. And then the next morning he wakes up with a really bad hangover. And after he wakes up and the hangover goes away a little, says, hey, what happened last night? Oh, whoops, I killed my wife. That was a little impulsive of me. Right? That was a little bit maybe took the party a little bit too far over there. So we already know that Achashverosh is not like a guy that thinks things through very carefully. He's the kind of guy that makes decisions on the spot. We've discovered this about him. And in fact, that's why Charvonah realized that this is a moment that if at this moment the king doesn't decide to kill Haman, Haman will talk his way out of this. Haman will figure out a way to get out of it. Because look, Haman was already accused of trying to kill all the Jews, including Esther. And did the king say kill him? No. Then he comes back in and he thinks that he's trying to attack her in the palace. You would think he would say, let me kill him. Charvonah sees he's still not saying that. The king is confused. And so Charvonah kind of pushes guys tottering on the edge a little bit. Charvonah is one that gives that final push. The final push over the edge. He says to Achashverosh, by the way, yesterday he built a gallows. He wanted to hang Mordechai on. Wouldn't it be cool? He should be on those gallows. He kind of hints it. And that's the moment. Okay, hang him on the gallows. There's no court case. There's no plan. There's no thought process here. Charvonah saw the moment where the king was open, so to say, where he was already, not thinking clearly and already a little bit smished, we say in Yiddish, a little, all over the place. So he brings up the gallows. And so Charvonah was responsible for making sure that Haman was actually killed right then and there. And that's why he's Zachar Latov. That's why he's remembered for good. Because if Charvonah would have remained quiet, they would have just taken them away. So Achashverosh could clear his mind again. 1 second, go back for another stroll in the palace. Haman, who, by the way, you'll notice Haman doesn't say a word in his defense. Why does he not say a word? So I didn't bring the text, but when Esther first revealed that she was a Jew, Haman says, Haman was startled. He was astounded. He was not expecting that. He didn't know she was Jewish. He was a little like, he saw the king was angry, and Haman got momentarily discombobulated. He didn't know. So that's why Haman got confused. He was like not ready. He just had a bad day. Taking Mordechai and the thing all day. He didn't eat. You know what I'm saying? He was hungry. He was tired. Now he's being accused of trying to kill the queen. So he was like a little bit like, you know what I'm saying? And that's why I said it, like thinking how to defend himself. He's begging Esther. You can tell he's not his normal scheming, conniving self. And so Charvonah ensures that the moment shouldn't pass where Haman is killed before he ever figures out a way to try and weasel his way out of the situation. And if not for Charvonah, who knows if the story would have ended the same way. And that's why we say V'gam Charvonah Zachar Lato. Okay, makes sense what I said? Very clean, right? Makes sense. It fits with the personality of Achashverosh. We see it in the story. Okay. But now let's go a little deeper. Who, my friends, and good evening, all you watching from all over the world. It's glad to see that you're watching us. Who, my friends, is this Charvonah? Why is he so important? Where does he come from? How does he even end up in the room? Officially, it was a private party between the king and Haman and the queen. No one else was there. Who is this Charvonah that's even present, that has the right to interrupt? Imagine, there's a conversation going on between the king and the queen, and this guy pipes up, excuse me, right? I have a question, by the way. Who is he? You have a question? Yeah, what's your question?
I was wondering if Charvonah was looking for an opportunity to take and that's why he did that.
Okay, maybe. We'll see some more soon, his intentions. Let's see. So who is Charvonah? Where does he come from? So actually, there's one more time we have Charvonah mentioned in the Megillah. He's not mentioned once in the Megillah, twice. But the first time he's mentioned, he doesn't really have a speaking role, anything of importance. His name gets easily, just like read in a long list. But actually, if you paid attention, all the way in chapter 1, in the very first chapter of the Megillah, in this is by the party, that 180-day party, this is when Achashverosh calls Esther to appear before him. And he calls the king, the queen, and right here, verse number 10. Chapter 1:10. It was on the 7th, when the king's heart was merry with wine, he ordered Muhammad, Bizisa, Charvonah, Bigsa, Vavaksa, Zesar, and Charkas, the 7 chamberlains, who ministered in the presence of King Achashverosh. So here we see that Charvonah is one of the 7 top advisors of the king. He's number 3. Haman's number 1. Muhammad, he's number 3. Now, if you notice, I highlighted in Hebrew the word Charvonah from chapter 7 and Charvonah from chapter 1. Do you see a difference between the name, how Charvonah is spelled in Hebrew? In chapter 7, in verse number 9, when the Megillah is telling us about Charvonah, spells the word, I see I highlighted in the bold in the Hebrew with the letter Hey, it is Charvonah. Sounds the same, but it's a different letter. And in chapter 1, the first time we're introduced to Charvonah, his name is spelled with the Aleph. In chapter 1, it's spelled with the Aleph. You see that, Randy? You see that? Okay. I didn't make it up. It's there in the Megillah. What is the difference if his name is spelled with a Hey or with an Aleph? Sometimes people spell people's names wrong. Some people get very bent out of shape if you spell the name wrong. Well, very good. The Hey represents the name of God. That's true. Hey is the letter of God's name. No, Aleph is not part of God's name. That's not. God's name is Yud Hey. It's like Abraham got the Hey and God. Okay. So what does that have to do with Charvonah? So first of all, Charvonah in chapter 1, one thing we know for sure. The Charvonah in chapter 1, one of the advisors of the king, is the same, but he's not the same as the Charvonah in chapter 7. There's a hint, and the fact that his name is spelled differently, unlike in today, if I spell your name wrong, it's just a spelling mistake. But then the Megillah spells it differently because there's a difference. So the Ibn Ezra says, and the Medrash says, and it's quoted from many places, tells us that Charvonah was actually a very close, quote-unquote, friend and confidant of Haman. They were buddies. They were partners. They were both advisors of the king. And Charvonah saw the power of Haman and became like his close friend. And that's why in chapter 1, he comes right after Haman. He spoke to Aleph. He's Charvonah. He's a friend of Haman. But then this advisor of the king, he sees what's happening now with Haman being disgraced in chapter 7. You know what he does? He switches sides very quickly. Very, very quickly. In fact, says the commentaries, the Medrash says that when Haman came home, remember I told you a few minutes ago, when Haman came home, what does the Megillah say? He says to his wife and to his beloved friends, his advisors, what should I do about Mordechai? And his advisors advised him, build a gallows 50 amos high, 50 cubits high. Who was the advisor that advised him to build a gallows 50 cubits high? Charvonah. Charvonah was there. He helped him build the gallows. And then, how does he know it's 50 cubits high? He was part of the engineering team that designed it. Now he sees that Haman is about to get killed. He sees the king is angry at Haman without missing a beat. The self-serving individual who knows how to play the political game as anybody else goes from being Haman's friend to being Esther's friend. He switches sides. All of a sudden, he didn't have a word of defense for Esther until now. If you notice, he didn't speak up for Esther before. He had nothing to say. Now, when he sees that the king is angry and he sees Haman's face is covered, oh, by the way, guess whose side I'm on? I'm on Esther with you. Let me stand up for Esther. Oh, Mr. King, there's a gallows outside. Let's hang Haman. As Robert said, maybe he thought he got elevated now. Here was the moment. Haman probably didn't like Haman. It was probably all a friendship of political, expedience. Thank you. And here was the opportunity. Charvonah didn't miss a beat. He jumps right on it. There's the gallows. Haman is killed. Charvonah no longer has to lick the you-know-what of Haman. He's gone. And so now we're introduced to a whole new Charvonah. Here's a guy who has a different agenda. In fact, the Medrash says something very interesting. You know what the Medrash says? When the ox falls, many are the slaughterers. You know, when the ox is wild, no one's afraid to touch it. When the ox falls down, everyone comes running. I'm the one that's slaughtered. In America, there's a different expression. That failure is an orphan, and success is an illegitimate child, basically, in clean English. Many people I'm the father of that child. You claim fatherhood or responsibility for the success, but the failure is an orphan. No one knows where that came from, right? So all of a sudden, over here, the ox fell. Right away, Charvonah the bandwagon to be on the side of the Jews and to try and help out, to help Esther, to defend Esther. He was quiet till now, not a word. Haman's on the way down. He jumps on the wagon to join the party. That's how the Medrash says it. That's what Ibn Ezra explains it, etc. But that's one perspective. The Gemara, Megillah tells us something else interesting. That this Charvonah in chapter 7 is not the same Charvonah as one. That we know. But look at the Hay. Some of you correctly said that the Hay is the name of God. The Charvonah of chapter 1 is one of the advisors of the king. An advisor of the king was not invited to the party. There were no advisors there. It was a private party. So who shows up all of a sudden to give the king the idea of hanging Haman on the gallows that he had prepared for Mordechai? Remember those words? Who do we say is Zachur Latov, remembered for good? Eliyahu Hanavi. The words Zachur Latov, remembered for good, are words that we use to describe the coming of Elijah the prophet. It's a Mishnah in Saita or in Sukkah. It's in other places in traditional Judaism we find when we're describing the coming of Eliyahu Hanavi. We say Eliyahu Hanavi, Zachur Latov. That's how the songs go. Elijah the prophet who's remembered. Gam Charvonah Zatov. So to Charvonah is Zachur Latov, remembered for good. And that's why Charvonah's name switches from an Aleph to an Hey. When it's written with an Aleph, that's just the regular advisor of the king. When it's written with a Hey, that's Elijah the prophet disguised to look like an advisor of the king. He came in disguise. Elijah the prophet does that, right? He showed at that moment when we need a little help, count on Elijah the prophet to be there, dressed up like who would be at that moment, to give the final push that Haman should be killed. And in fact, for those who speak Hebrew, you'll appreciate this. Charvonah is from the Hebrew word cherev. Cherev. No, cherev. What is a cherev? A sword, correct. So, cherev aleph is a sword of destruction. Cherev with a hey is ready this knife of the Brit Milah. The circumcision is a cherev with a hey, is a sword used for the bris, which is also the hey of Abraham, God's name. So the Charvonah of the aleph is a destructive advisor. Charvonah with a hey is the advisor, Eliyahu Navi Elijah, the Zachulato. What? Yeah. Fascinating, huh? Didn't know there's so much on this little guy, Charvonah, takes up a whole, one verse and one word of another, the whole story. But my friends, I still haven't gotten to the best part yet. Still haven't gotten to the best part yet. So now let's understand, what are the words that Charvonah says? Now that we have some different perspectives on Charvonah, either he's a friend of the Jews that was quiet, just gave the final push, or he was a self-serving minister, or he's really a Navi. We'll get back to that. Let's think about the argument he makes to Achashverosh and why this argument is so powerful to push Achashverosh over the edge, so to say. What does he say that has such an impact? Because after all, if you go back to the story, go back to chapter 7. Think about it. The king is told by your wife, imagine you're Achashverosh, and the queen says to you, there's an evil man that wants to destroy me and my people. Who is this evil man? Haman. He wants to kill us all. That's not enough for Achashverosh to kill Haman. He says, let me think about it. He goes out for a walk in the street to calm down, to try and get a breath of fresh air and not make any decisions. And then he comes back in 1 second, and Esther's, and then he thinks Esther's being attacked, and he screams at Haman. He even has Haman's face covered, which is when the moment Charvonah was waiting for to speak up. But still he doesn't want to kill Haman. He still doesn't to kill Haman yet. Oh, you made a gallows 50 cubits tall. Now I'm going to kill you. Why is that an argument to make him worthy of the death sentence? If trying to kill the Jews is not enough to be worthy of death, if trying to rape Esther in the palace is not worthy of death, so then what does building gallows have to do with anything? Why is that such a powerful argument to make the king decide, enough with this guy? Let's hang him. Yes, question.
Does it go to the fact to Mordecai was the one who foiled the attempt on the king's life, and he wasn't rewarded? And now that he mentioned that Mordecai was supposed to be hanged, the king in his paranoid mind is saying he's trying to kill him. Perhaps he had something to do with the two ministers that tried to kill me because Mordecai was.
Excellent. You're very much on the right track. Very much on the right track. So, but let me go. You're on the right track. Very much so. Very much so. I'm going to say a little more, but you're on the right track. But first, let me say simply. So one classic explanation. So now we're not talking about who is Charvonah. Now we're trying to understand what's the argument being made. Forget who says it. What's so important about the fact that he made a gallows 50 cubits tall? That now is what pushes Achashverosh over the edge to say, if that's what he did, he deserves to die. Okay? So a very simple classic explanation is that Charvonah was hinting to Achashverosh, why does he need a gallows 50 cubits tall to hang Mordecai? You know how tall 50 cubits is? That's a lot of hanging room. You can hang a lot of people on there. In fact, all 10 of Haman's sons were hung on that tree and there was still space. So he's hinting, not only does Haman want to hang Mordecai, he wants to hang Esther and Achashverosh, and he wants to hang you there too. That's why he got nervous. Gallows so high. He thought, who else does he want to hang over there? And not to push him over there. So that's one commentary. But here's a beautiful, beautiful commentary. And here you see the amazing miracle of the Megillah story. The Purim story is a miracle we talked about on Shabbos at great length that seems natural. It seems like a few things happened, but it was so exact, so precise, so deliberate, that only God could have made this happen exactly the way it happened. If you remember, I said to you earlier tonight, what happened the night before the story? The king couldn't sleep, and he has his servant read to him the book of Chronicles. And in the book, he remembers how years before, which we talked about last week's class, years before, Big Son and Seresh wanted to kill the king, and Mordechai saved his life, and nothing had been done to pay Mordechai back, to show appreciation for having saved his life. Now, did Achashverosh care about that all these years that had passed? No. When Achashverosh's life was saved, did he do anything to honor Mordechai? Imagine someone saved. What do you do? Okay, I write it down in my book. I put it in my diary. That's it. No gift, no celebration, no come over for a dinner. Let me honor you. You're the king, no less, right? You would think the king will give him a medal, give him an honor, give him something, give him a piece of land, like something. The king, nothing. They wrote it down in the Chronicles, like they write everything down. The record keepers kept track, but nothing was done. Not even the medal, not a proclamation, not a piece of paper. So obviously, Achashverosh didn't care to honor Mordechai. All of a sudden, it's a random night. The king can't sleep, and suddenly he says, "Oh, Mordechai, I have to honor him." And if that would have happened 2 months earlier, nothing. He would have been honored, and then Haman could have said, "Let's kill Mordechai," and Achashverosh probably would have listened to Haman. But it was a night that Haman came to hang Mordechai on gallows that he had just built. Haman walks into the palace, and before he has a chance to ask his request, the king says, "I have a question for you, Haman. What should I do to a man that I want to honor?" Haman, we all know the story, sets the trap for himself. He has to now go and take Mordechai in this parade. Obviously, doesn't bring up the tree at all. And now comes the morning. What's happening? Everyone wakes up in the city of Shushan. Royal edict goes out. Everything is closed today. All the stores are closed. It was a national holiday declared by the king to honor Mordechai. That's actually why I didn't mention before. Haman had to give him a haircut himself because all the barbers were closed. It was a national holiday. The whole city was shut down for the parade to honor Mordechai. So everyone's talking. Schools are closed, right? Everything's closed down. The government office is closed. The banks are closed. Everyone's talking. And what are they talking about? Yesterday, there was no tree 50 amos tall. How tall were the buildings in Shushan? I don't know. But a 75-foot tall gallows shows up one night, and Haman had a house in the middle of town. Haman didn't live in the middle of nowhere. He lived near the palace. He was a very important person. I'm sure he had a beautiful house, probably one of the nicest houses in the city of Shushan, right in the center of town. And in his backyard, or his front yard, I don't know, in his house, there's a gallows 75 feet tall. And people are talking amongst themselves. Who is that gallows for? What's that for? Oh, Haman built gallows to hang Mordechai. Who's the parade for today? Oh, for the man the king wishes to honor, Mordechai. Hold on a second. Mordechai is going to be killed, or Mordechai is being honored? Which one? So Haman is taking Mordechai on the parade to honor him, while just last night in his house, he built gallows to kill him. Now Mordechai comes to feast. Achashverosh is all confused. He all doesn't know what to do with himself. His wife is a Jew. Haman wants to kill his wife. He just tried raping her. He's all confused. Who is Haman? At that moment, Charvonah says the following words to Achashverosh. Your minister Haman is not just being important. He's taken his authority to a whole new level. While you were having Haman, Mordechai honored, you know what he was doing? He was planning the execution of Mordechai. Now, could a minister, let's say you're the most important minister in the country, certain authorities, you don't need to get the king's permission to write a check, right? You're in charge of the finance. You can spend certain amounts of money without getting approval. You can make certain things, do certain laws. But no minister has the right to execute people without permission from the king. That's for sure. Especially not when the king gave an edict to honor him. So remember, Achashverosh is a person who's very fickle, who's very impulsive, especially when he feels that his honor is being threatened. Why did he kill Vashti? Because he thought she was, being disrespectful. She wasn't honoring him. He said, come. She said, no, thank you. Well, without the thank you part. Just the no part. She said no. So the no to him was a direct, affront to his honor. Kill her. Says Charvonah to Achashverosh, you today made a parade to honor Mordechai. And listen to the words of the Megillah. And while there was a parade happening, what was standing, Omeid Meves Haman, standing in the house of Haman, not in the king's palace, not under your authority, but under Haman's authority, without your permission. Haman never told the king about it. Without your permission, Haman has his own gallows for his own execution without the king's permission, where he was going to kill the person that you wanted to honor. And that was already too much for Achashverosh. You understand? To kill the Jews doesn't mean I'm going to kill Haman. To attack my wife, I'm still not going to kill you. Oh, you're dishonoring me. You're not doing what I want. I made a parade to honor Mordechai, and you created a condition where people are laughing at my honor to Mordechai, knowing that you have gallows to kill him. Oh, you went against me, Haman. You went against my command to honor him. Off with your head. You understand? Such a brilliant insight. This is what gets Haman. This is what gets Achashverosh upset. Just killing the Jews, killing Esther, raping Esther. He can handle that. You're going against me. I told you to honor Mordechai, and you kept the gallows standing. You didn't take them down. They're still standing. I can look out the window and I see a physical sign that you don't honor the person that I want to honor. You were in charge of the parade, and you're not honoring the person I want to honor because you have gallows to execute. So without my permission, you're going to get hung on the gallows for Mordechai. So everyone should see that the gallows that you made are for you because Mordechai is being honored. It was all about Achashverosh's own honor. It's such a it gets into the psychology, it gets into the mind of Achashverosh so beautifully. Why he responds so intensely only when Charvonah says, oh, there's a tree 50 cubits tall. That's the argument that sets Achashverosh over the edge. Isn't that beautiful? It's beautiful. So, by the way, the word V'gam is just interesting. There's two feasts that Charvonah was at. Charvonah was at the feast of the first feast, and then this feast, and by both feasts. Anyway, this is the story. What?
How can you change his mind and be inside of his spirit?
Okay, so let's talk about that now. So what's the lesson for us, my friends? What's the takeaway? What's the meaning of the Bible? What lesson can we take away from this? Everything I said now was fascinating. Fascinating. I think so anyway. I can say so myself. I never knew this whole perspective on this whole dialogue. What Charvonah says. But so what's the lesson for us? So Charvonah, even though according to some commentaries, according to the Gemara, is Eliyahu Navi, which is a very clean way of understanding the story. Achashverosh, Haman is exposed. And Achashverosh is still not convinced to kill Haman. So God, so to say, has no choice. He sends Eliyahu Navi, who is a miracle worker. Okay, time for a miracle. Time to send an Elijah disguised as a messenger called Charvonah. We'll give him a costume. The first Purim costume was already then. Elijah had a costume, and we'll get Haman killed. That's a nice story, but it doesn't really fit with the ultimate message of the whole Purim story being when God's name is hidden, when God's name is concealed. The ultimate miracle of Purim is not that God sent Eliyahu Navi to come and do a miracle. If that's how the miracle happened, then it's already not the ultimate concealed God. There is still something supernatural about the fact that Haman was killed. And we know, and Chassidus this is talked about at great length, the whole Purim miracle is that it's a miracle that happens naturally. It's a miracle that happens according to the normal, natural, regular law of palace intrigue, of politics, of people backstabbing each other. Politicians are very good at doing that. That's how the story happens. So we need to understand that Charvonah, on the way we understand the story being a regular story, Charvonah is no holy person. Charvonah is no saint. He's no tzaddik. He's not a blessed Mordechai. What does it say? Baruch Mordechai. Mordechai HaYehudi, Mordechai the Jew is blessed. Esther is blessed, right? All the righteous people are blessed. Charvonah is not blessed. He's not righteous. He's only remembered for good. You know the joke about this guy that dies and they're reading the will. He says, to my brother Chaim, I leave you my house. And to my sister this, I leave you my whatever collection. And to my uncle Louis, who said I would never mention him in my will, hi Louis. Right? Yeah. Anyway, just popped into my head. But that's Charvonah is only remembered. It's like you get the garden, you get the 401k, you get the life insurance policy. Oh, hi, how are you? Like, hi Louis, I mentioned your name. You don't get anything, but your name is in the will, right? You got it. There's nothing after your name, but you got it in the will. So Charvonah is mentioned. Charvonah is no tzaddik. He's no righteous. In fact, the word v'gam, I forgot to say before. What is the word v'gam Charvonah zachal tov? What is it? And also? And also means it's like Johnny come lately. Like all of a sudden, Charvonah sees an opportunity, he jumps on. The word v'gam means and also, right? Gam is also. He sees an opportunity. He didn't like Haman. He saw that the tide of power is changing in the palace. He was quick. He's quick on his feet. V'gam, also me. Don't forget me. I'm also your friend. He jumps on, right? Like all these politicians afterwards. Yeah, I'm here for you. I also stood up for you. I also once said something in your favor. I was next day said something else, not in your favor. Whatever. I said something in your favor. So v'gam Charvonah. He's a guy who just comes running along. He's not in it because he loves Esther or he cares deeply for the Jewish people. He's not a true friend. He's an opportunist. And nevertheless, the Torah, the Megillah, is telling us something so important. Sometimes salvation comes from quote unquote a nobody. It comes from someone who's a Charvonah. He's a simple bystander who saw an opportunity. He's not a person that's important in the story. He's almost a non-participant. He's not a Jew. He's not involved. He has no skin in the game. And that's the whole point. Anybody could be Charvonah. Anybody that sees an opportunity to help someone, even if you have ulterior motives, even if you've not been involved your whole life and you're part of this team, you see an opportunity to say something true, to stand up for truth, to expose evil, and at that moment, instead of being quiet, you speak up. For that alone, you're worthy of being remembered for good for all future generations. It's an important message to the world today. For us, we're part of the team of Esther and Mordechai, but to the world, to the Charvonahs of the universe, to the people that know the truth, that see what's going on, they see the opportunity. But they're quiet. They don't want to get involved in politics. They don't want to stand up too loud for Israel because I know it'll hurt their business and they might, get into a fight on Facebook. No holy person. That Charvonah is remembered because he spoke up. This is one of the most important things, right? There's a very, very famous expression that when they came for, I don't know who said it, I don't remember it. So I should have looked it up before the class. That when they came for the Poles, they didn't speak up because I wasn't a Pole. When they came for the lesbians, whatever, German minister said. When they came for the lesbians or whatever, or for the gays, when they came for the gays, I didn't speak up because I wasn't gay. When they came for the gypsies, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a gypsy. When they came for the Jews, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Jew. When they came for the Poles, I didn't speak up because I wasn't a Pole. And then when they came for me, there was no one left to speak up. Just speaking up at the right moment is of an eternal remembrance. Good. That's one message. That's the message to Charvonah. That's the message to all the people in the universe. I don't know who's watching me or not watching me, who we can influence. When you have an opportunity, when you're in a conversation, you just happen to be, in your office, and you hear someone making a comment about Gaza and the poor Palestinians or whatever, and you can either mind your own business, or you can stand up for truth. At that moment is the moment that Charvonah just did one thing. He just said, all Charvonah did was make one statement. He didn't fight for the Jews. He didn't go to battle for them. He didn't risk his life for them. All he did was at a moment of truth, speak truth. That's all he did. He just made an argument of the fact that the gallows 50 almost tall, that when Haman was supposed to be honoring Mordecai, he would take it down, still stand in the whole city or gallows. He just pointed that out to the king. That was to bring salvation to the world. So that's to the members of the world, to the universe, that has an opportunity to speak up. But it's also a message to the Jewish people. I see some Jews that they can't recognize or give thanks to people that speak up on our behalf, even if they do it for self-serving purposes, even if they do it because of whatever agenda they have. The fact is, Charvonah was no tzaddik. He had his own agenda, according to many commentaries. He was the same minister that was a friend of Haman, who advised Haman to help build the gallows. But that was yesterday. Today, Charvonah is speaking up for this. Today, Charvonah is speaking against Haman. Then today, Charvonah deserves to be recognized and validated and appreciated for what he's doing for the Jewish people. That's a very, very bad habit. I see quite a few Jews that do this. And we label people into boxes. And this person belongs to this political camp, so they can't be good. And because of that, even yes, it's true that they're saying good things for Israel. And yes, they're standing up for Israel, but they're still, whichever political camp they are, they're still whatever. And we have a hard time being able to, it's called being makir tov, to be thankful and to be appreciative of the fact that even if they have bad intentions, the fact is they're speaking up in our favor. And that's the prayer we say after we read the whole Megillah. Mordecai is blessed, Haman is cursed, Esther is blessed, Zeresh is cursed. But Charvonah, we as Jews need to remember also that non-Jew that could have been quiet, that could have just stayed out of it and didn't stay out, but instead chose to speak up, for that they deserve credit. For that they deserve our thanks for all future generations. The fact that yesterday they did something we don't like, and yes, they have other policies we don't like, who cares? If they're standing with us, if they're speaking up for us, we owe them our thanks. And if not, they're not. But if they are, and same thing, if they're not speaking in our favor, we can't say whatever. I won't go there. But that's the point for us. Charvonah did almost nothing. He was a self-serving person. He wasn't a hero, but he's still remembered because he did something good. And in the world of people that do a lot of nothing, someone that does something is worth being thanked. How's that for a good ending? Okay, my friends, Laila Tov. May God bless you all. Hope you all get the message. True, but it is hard to speak up. Sometimes you feel all alone. This is true. It is hard to speak up. That's why Charvonah gets credit. Whereas it is hard to speak up. So you should know, Maria, that when it's hard to speak up, remember Charvonah. And Charvonah spoke up. And because of his speaking up, he was remembered for good for all future generations. And that's what we need to remember forever. What? Next week. It's coming actually tomorrow, God willing. It's coming tomorrow, God willing. Okay, my friends, if you're watching, say goodnight. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. I didn't have a chance before. I want to think about but the world is quiet. Silence is very dangerous. Silence is very dangerous. Evil lives in silence. It's not only with Israel. You see someone bullying someone else. You see someone saying a nasty comment. The easy thing to do when you see someone saying something not nice is just don't get involved. Mind your own business. Stay in your own lane. And this is very important for us. But sorry, I'm putting it in the context of Israel and standing up for the Jewish people and standing up for our right to defend our land, to free our hostages. But this is true in every interaction we have. If you see an injustice taking place, we have an obligation to speak up, an obligation to stand up and not to be afraid to speak up and to be proud Jews, etc. Okay, anyway, thank you, Shira. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Gail. Still in the medical. Hopefully you go home tomorrow, Gail. So we have Fuah Shlema for Tzipora Yaakov, right to Yaakova. Keith, hello, how are you? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Laila Tov next week, God willing. Same time, same place. Correct. Wednesday, I'll be at a